this evening. We're one of the largest colleges in the University of London, and we're especially proud to welcome you this evening to our beautiful...
From Eurotech, and unlike Toby, we do care about technology. I'm the Enterprise Sales Director for Eurotech, and we're a UK-based company. We were founded back in 1993, and I like to think that we're the kind of company that David Cameron goes on about as being, from the private sector, commercial enterprise that wants to grow. We're based in Waltham Thames. We're approximately 40 people now in the UK, although we do have global customers. We're obviously focused on providing IT solutions and services to our customers, and we like to think about it. We come from the sort of niche end of the market. We're technology led. As I said, we do care about technology. And initially we were focused on the oil and gas industry, and it sort of came out supporting tape drives in that industry, and that sort of moved on over time to, from our customer demands in terms of supplying complete systems, whether it was computers, storage devices, and even just maintaining their whole operation. And then moving on from that, because of what we did in that oil and gas sector around high performance computing, etc., we've got involved in some of the more interesting industries. And I think, as you know, the life science industry in the UK now is probably the number 2 in terms of GDP, and we're starting to get involved in technologies that can help develop growth in that area for the UK. So what do we do? As I said, we're an information technology company. So we can simply design an IT solution for you, provide products and services, and by popular demand from our customers, we've actually just introduced a cloud service. I know there's a lot of hype around cloud, and you may or may not have your views about that, but we talk about moving forward. And then wrapped around that is that we can provide a complete customer experience. So what do we see from a technology perspective? Whatever you think from the industry perspective, they reckon over a 4-year period, data seems to grow around about 10x over that 4-year period. And obviously there's challenges around how you deal with that. And obviously we're seeing, it's increasingly the IT budgets within organisations are being squeezed, and we're certainly seeing in London that power and space, and obviously the environment from that perspective is becoming more of an issue. We're also seeing companies looking at the cloud. Obviously that's one of those, I would say, a hype word, because it is used rather a lot, but the idea that you're buying IT as a service rather than deploying your own IT solutions. And as I said, we do have a service that delivers that today to some of our customers. The other thing that's quite interesting is what we're seeing in terms of new devices that people want to use in the work environment, whether it's their own devices, iPads and iPhones and the other PDA devices. And how do you incorporate that into your corporate IT infrastructure? And there's challenges around that. And as a small organisation, I've worked for some of the larger IT organisations. It's very easy to understand the value of brand and how that can get you into organisations to talk about new technology. But when you're a small company like ourselves that's trying to grow, it's how do you get to talk to the senior people within those organisations that want to take on board some of the innovative technology that we have to offer. And if we find, some of those traditional forms of marketing are becoming more difficult, as obviously time pressure on IT professionals has become more demanding. And it does seem as though this idea of networking and events like this have proven very fruitful. And we do see that sort of trend towards more social networking. So I talked about innovative technology. So one of the products that we developed, and it was specifically for the oil and gas industry, we've taken some off-the-shelf products and developed an archive solution that's specifically tailored towards our oil and gas customers. And what that means is they can have a more cost-effective use of their information, they can search that archive and they can keep it offline. And that is technology that we developed internally ourselves. And now using that as a springboard, we're starting to expand that out into some of the other areas, especially around the life science arena. So that's very interesting from the point of view of how do you deal with these ever-increasing demands on data. You can't keep it all online, you do need some intelligent ways to manage that data. So what about performance? I mean, this is one of the areas that I think is going to get more interesting over time, because if you look at what's happened in terms of the growth, in terms of what's been enabled in the IT industry, it's normally been predicated on the idea that we've been able to increase capacities, whether that's in storage, in terms of storage devices, and continue to increase that level of performance in those processors, and we want to do more and more with that. And I mean, this sort of illustrates the point. If we carry on along that route, in not terms of using the IT technologies that we have available to us in a more intelligent way, we end up with processors that will be running as hot as the sun, and obviously there's issues around that. So one of the areas that we think is that we're pretty good at here in the UK is how do you use the resources that you have available to you in a more intelligent way. And one of the areas that we've been working with, which is we're a US-based company, is the idea of reconfigurable computing. And it's getting quite interesting in terms of what's happening in that whole high-performance computing industry. If you think about it, pretty much, any product we use has traditionally now been designed using computer technology, whether it's an aircraft, whether it's a car, a lot of work that's going on in terms of drug development, etc. It's been dependent on that ever-evolving growth of computer technology. So this reconfigurable computing is quite interesting in the way that if you go back to when we had the deck machines, and you used to add on a specific hardware device just to accelerate the floating point, and then an organisation came along called Cray and said, why don't we put that all into one machine, and then a whole vector supercomputer was born. Then we went to commodity products in terms of like Intel and ADM processors, and obviously that's then started to run out as the miniaturization of that technology becomes more and more difficult. So it's how can you make more effective use of the transistors that you have in a device to apply it to your computing problem. So in terms of this reconfigurable device that we're talking about here from Convert, it's the idea that a certain percentage of the transistors on that can be customized to solve a specific problem. And one of the areas that we're going to be able to test in the global markets, and mainly here in the UK, is in high throughput bioinformatics. It's as these next generation gene sequences are becoming available, there's more data to process. How do we assemble that, whether it's the human genome or the plant genome, in a sensible period of time? Well, yes, you could have larger and larger racks of computers. Why not have a more intelligent device that's specifically custom for that area? And then we're using the expertise that we have in electronic design in the UK to develop these custom personalities, both for this marketplace and for others in oil and gas, because it's the same thing. How can we more effectively use the computing resources that we have available, given the resources that we have available in terms of power, heat and cooling, etc. So from a Eurotech perspective, how we got to where we got to, what's in our DNA, we believe we're a very customer-centric organisation. We very much believe in an ethical approach, working in close collaboration with our customers. And in some ways we are an engineering-led company, because the majority of people we have in our organisation either come from a software or hardware background. But I do think that one of the key things that we found in working in collaboration with our customers, it's really listening and responding to their demands. And obviously that is really ingrained in our DNA, is how do we promote that, how do we encourage that internally. We also want to leverage great teamwork, and then a wrap around that is to basically deliver excellent customer support to our customers. And that was it.